Hey, we're back. So, had to wait for some parts to come in that I've ordered for the CBR. Well, they've come in now, so get back onto it. So, first thing I got was a new rear sprocket, 48 tooth alloy. This was on sale for $9 from Rocky Mountain. Fucking bargain. I wanted to put a 50 on it, but for $9 I'll make the 48 work. We've got a chain slider for the swing arm. This was the part I was waiting on mostly. This is the front outlet for the radiator hose that goes on the front of the cylinder head. You got to see in there where that goes. I was missing that. It's going to foul on this cross member that I'd put in here, so I've just got to cut that out. Luckily I'd only welded the front of it, the back's just tacked, so I'll move that, get that out of the way. Then we're going to look at mounting this radiator. So this is the 125 standard 125 radiator. It was pretty twisted and bent up from the crash that this bike was in. So I've just straightened it out enough just to make it work. I don't know if it's going to be big enough for the 450 to keep it cool, but I'm going to use it just to get the bike running anyway. But at the moment, as you can see, forks are going to foul on it there, so just going to move these mounts back and down a bit so the radiator itself sits down a bit lower and out of the way of the fork, so that's not going to be too big of a deal. Carby, I need to go through the carby. I bought that off Marketplace and it had been sitting in someone's shed. I don't know how long it had been sitting there or if the jets are blocked or what the deal is with that, so I've got to pull that apart and go through that. I've just got a bunch of old radiator hoses here, some from the CBR125, some CRF ones. Just going to see if I can make something work with them for the time being. I'm probably going to have to get custom hoses made for the finished product, but like I said, I just want to get it started. So the plan is by the end of this video, have it running, or at least start it. I don't actually know if it is going to start. This engine I bought from Marketplace, it was sitting on the floor in some guy's shed. He told me that it was a runner. It turns over freely, it's got decent compression, but never really know, and it doesn't have any oil in it, so I've got to at least check that it's got an oil filter in it as well. Put some oil in it. I might pull the rocker cover off and check the valves, make sure I can't see anything drastically wrong under there before I try and start it. But yeah, we'll just see how we go. But to start it, the biggest job I've got to do is fit a kickstart. So I'll show you what the issue I was going to have with this here. Standard kickstart. The shaft sits nicely in this little pocket in the frame. That was just a fluke, but obviously it needs to come out way more for it to work. It's not going to work like that. So rather than cut away a heap of the frame, which I don't really want to do, I've found another kickstart for the same engine just on Marketplace as well, just another cheapie. My plan is to use this bottom bit, if I can get this out. Hang on, let's put the phone down. Alright, so that's the lower there. So, I'll show you what my plan is. I'm going to cut this top off, this little stopper here, basically just so that it's just a nice round section with the spline, so that will go onto the shaft like that. Then, I'm going to weld a piece of tube to the outside of that. Obviously it'll be a lot shorter than that, but just to bring it out enough of this clearance from the frame, and then weld the other side of the tube to the kickstart. So the kickstart will end up sitting, I don't know, somewhere out like that. It's probably not ideal because it's going to put a lot more side load on the kickstart shaft, but I figure when I'm at the track with this bike I will try and roll start it. I may even buy a set of rollers to start it, but I just want to be able to have a kickstart on it as a backup, and so that I can start it in the workshop without having to roll it down the street every time I want to start it. So I'm not really sure if this is going to work, but we'll give it a shot. There's not much to lose there. There's not much money invested in that kickstart. So yeah, that's going to be this video. We'll get the radiator dropped and mounted up, kickstart mounted, and then let's see if this mystery engine starts. The first job I've got to tackle is these radiator mounts. So I'm going to try and use the standard mounts. I'm just going to move them from there down a bit further on the frame. I'll just try and cut them off and see if I can weld them under the frame in that new spot there. There's still going to be a little bit of clearance issue on the other side for the top outlet. Might hit the frame. Hang on a second. So if I have that hanging under the frame there, I've got the issue of that top outlet there hitting on the frame, so I might have to notch the frame. But I'll get these mounts cut off and move down to start with and see how close it is. Alright, so I've just cut that cross member out of the way and got that outlet mounted, and you can see there it's going to be pretty close to the frame, but I think it'll clear once I finish trimming the rest of this down. But I also cut the radiator mounts off to start looking at mounting that a bit lower, somewhere around there I guess. But I've just realised before I can do that, I actually need to make sure that I'm going to have clearance for the exhaust. So that sort of runs pretty close to where the radiator is going to sit in its new spot. But to mount that, so this header pipe, when I got it in this engine, it didn't have the bracket to clamp it to the cylinder, so I can't buy that individually. I have to buy a whole header pipe. I'm not going to do that, so I've just got to make something up for that now. So I'm just going to copy the standard design of like a pressed thin sheet metal, and then we'll get that mounted so I can get the header pipe bolted on, and then we'll see how much room we've got for the radiator. Alright, so that's a header pipe flange made. It's not the most amazing piece of engineering, but it does the job, and it saves me having to buy a whole new header pipe just to get that flange. I don't have a gasket in here at the moment, but it doesn't really matter. It's still bolted up alright, it's nice and snug. And so now we can work on getting the radiator to fit, make sure I've got clearance for that, and also clearance for the lower hose, which is going to be pretty close to the header pipe. So we'll have to see what I can do about that. Alright, so I just tried the radiator in a few different spots. Tried messing around with the standard brackets and so on, but I think what's going to be easiest is just to drill the frame and put a riv nut in there and then mount the radiator direct to the frame. Oh, g'day mate! You come to help! What are you doing in here? You never come in here. Yeah, so I'll just drill the frame. I've just had to bend the brackets on the top of the radiator slightly, just twisted them outwards on an angle, and then that slots straight in. And that's going to bring it an inch or so further back and down, which is all I need. So I'm going to drill into this now and see if I can get a riv nut in there and see if it's as simple as it seems like it's going to be. Alright, so that worked. It's cool when simple ideas work without too many dramas. I just need to make a mount for this lower mount here, which shouldn't be too difficult. I'll just run it off the frame here. But before I do that, I'm going to mess around now with getting some of the hoses to fit and see how that's going to go. On this side here, I've got just enough room for a hose to clamp onto there, so that's cool. I thought I might have to cut into the frame there, but I think I'm going to be okay. Getting a hose onto this lower outlet's going to be another story, so not sure how we're going to go there. I'll start messing around with some hoses. But as far as steering lock goes now, I've got plenty of clearance for the radiator. Like, it does hit there, but that's heaps of lock. I haven't put a steering stop on this bike yet, so I'll just put one on that brings it off the radiator a little bit. But as far as like the turning, the amount of steering lock that I've got, it's plenty. So that's cool. Yeah, really simple. Hopefully this radiator is going to be enough for the 450. Won't know till I ride it, I guess, but I'll carry on for now as though it's going to work. So I've just cobbled some hoses together using parts of the CBR125 hose and part of the 450 hose. I've just got a piece of pipe in the middle of them just as a joiner. And I think I've got the shape pretty good. So it's plenty of clearance there on the header pipe. You've got these rubber heat shields here, which the standard 450 has anyway. Like, it is close, but I don't think it's any closer than what it is on a 450 normally. So that's cool. So that hose is all forwarded the shape, and then same with the one in here. Same thing, it's just two hoses just to get the angles that I need. Can't really get the camera in there to show you. But it looks like it's gonna work well enough for a bench start anyway. Obviously I would never ride the bike with this sort of setup, but this is just to let some coolant get through it so I can start it. So, and also now I know what shape hose I need, so I can go and either get some made or try and match these up with something else. So that's cool. So all we've got to do now is the lower radiator mount, and I've got to redo the cross member which I had to cut out. So that's going to go back in a bit higher, and then I'll have to make a little cutaway for the radiator hose to sit in that. But yeah, I think that'll do for today. So we've got the header pipe mounted, radiator mounted, hoses temporarily mounted. So I think I'll come back in the next couple of days and get the Kickstarter sorted, or attempt that, just like I was speaking about earlier, and then give the motor a quick once over and put some oil in it and see if it's going to start. Yeah, I'll come back in a couple of days. Right, we're on to the kickstart, so it's going to be easier for me to show you what I was planning here with this now, because I've sort of already started it. So I'll just swing the camera around. So what we've got here is the spline section off one of the kickstarts I had, and then just a piece of tube I've welded, or just tacked to it for now. So to get to this stage, I've pulled this lower section out of that other kickstart, cut the top off with a grinder, and then I've just inserted it onto a piece of stock that I've had here, which is the same inside diameter as the spline and the tube that I had, so could keep it all centered. Tack that in place, put that in the lathe and spun it up, just faced it, got it true, and then cut a chamfer onto it so the weld's got something to sit into, and then done the same thing with the piece of tube that I'm going to use to extend it. And then this is where we are at the moment. So this is going to show you what I had in mind. So here's your kickstart shaft, obviously the splined end there, so that slots on there, no problem at all. The clearance is ridiculously close, but it still clears all the way around, so I don't need to touch the frame, so that's cool. And as you can see, that should work fine. Obviously this will be cut down, it's probably pretty close to flush with the frame, and then this other kickstart will be welded onto it. So basically I've just extended the kickstart shaft by about 30 millimeters just to clear the frame. As I said earlier, it's not ideal because it's got to put a lot of side load on that shaft, and it's not designed for that, but this isn't going to be the primary method of starting the bike. It's just so I've got something to start it in the workshop, really. I want to try and I'll probably just bump start it everywhere else. So yeah, this looks like it's going to work, which is cool. So I'm going to go ahead now, trim this back, then get this section cleaned up, and tack that on, and we'll come and we'll double check again that it's all going to work and the kickstarter's going to clear, and then we can fully weld it, and that should be good. So yeah, cool. I just can't believe how lucky I was with this section of the frame. I haven't touched that frame. That's just, the kickstart shaft just happened to perfectly fit in that little V there. So couldn't be much more lucky than that. Anyway, I'll carry on getting this sorted. Here is the extended kickstart shaft. So pretty straightforward really. It's essentially just two pieces of shaft welded together with a spacer in the middle. Not the prettiest thing, but I'll come back and make that look a bit nicer later on. For now, it's just about functions. So it just slots under the spline like that. Probably as close as I could make it to the frame for clearance. Just like that. So now, because obviously that's only on the spline in the back, we've got quite a distance in there, so I've just machined up this little aluminium bung that will tap into the kickstart there. There's a bit of an interference fit, so I haven't actually put this in yet. I hope it fits. And then bolt just goes in like that. So anyway, I'm going to put the phone down while I tap that in home all the way, and then tighten this bolt up, and then I'm going to go and fiddle the electrics up to it now that we've got a kicker on it, and we'll see if it's got spark. So we'll come back in a minute and check for that. So now the kickstarter's sorted, there's a couple of things I want to check before I go too much further. So first thing is, I'm going to pull the oil filter out and we'll have a look at that, see if there's any shit in there. I don't even know if there's actually an oil filter in it. And we're going to pull the valve cover off, have a look at the cams and see if we can see anything that might be an issue if we try and start it in there. So this is the first time I'm looking at these. I've just cracked the bolts loose so I can take it off while I'm holding the camera, but I've never had this cover off before, so let's have a look what's in here. Looks like it's pulled the thread out with it, so that's not a good start. Might have to helicoil that. Anyway, let's have a look. There is a filter in it, so that's cool. I wasn't sure if this motor had been taken apart for parts. Alright. Still soaked with oil. Like, there's nothing glaringly obvious as far as metal goes in it. I'll have a proper look at this off camera, but that seems pretty good to me. I think if there was any major issues, this would be full of metal. So that's cool. Just a spring in there. Alright, let's pull the rocker cover off. So I've already pulled the bolts out of here. They were clean, but like there's no oil at all on them, so this engine's been sitting for a long time, so I might put some oil in the top end before I try and start it. But I'm a bit concerned because there's a lot of dirt and shit around the seal, on the underside of the seal. So anyway, let's have a look. I don't know if this cover's actually going to come off in the frame. Oh, heaps of room. That's easier than pulling one out of a 450 dirt bike frame. Alright, let's have a look. This is my first time looking at it, same as you. Looks good. Those cam lobes look good. I'll grab a socket and turn the engine over in a minute and double check, but man, that's clean. Awesome. no gunk and build up in there. That cam looks pretty good. Is there a mark there? Maybe. Let's have a closer look. Nothing that would stop it from starting anyway. Cool. Alright. Well, that's good. Good to know. I'll put that rocker cover back on for now. I've got a fresh oil filter that I'll chuck in it. And then go through and it's missing a few bolts as well from around the case. Not on the ignition side, but on the clutch cover here. So when I bought it, it was already missing that bolt, coolant drain bolt, the top one there, that lower one there, one back there. I don't know why, I must have been pinching them for another bite, but I think I'll be able to get some bolts out of the 125 engine that I can use for that. The only thing I'm a little bit worried about before trying to start it is I put a bit of oil down the plug hole earlier and just turned it over a few times because I thought the cylinder was going to be quite dry. And then I came back like a day later and I noticed that like I had a little bit of a leak from the center cases here, which makes me wonder if this gasket sucked in or is just dried, or what I'm more worried about is that someone's had the cases apart. But just looking at the oil filter and the top end, I don't think that's happened. I think that'll be fine. So all right, sweet. We'll put the rocker cover back on and then move forward and maybe have a look at the carby, I think. So before I put the valve cover back on, I thought I'll just quickly check the valve clearances. Exhaust is spot on, but the intakes are really tight, which is not good. It was common for these model Hondas to tighten up the intakes as they wore, but I don't have any shims here at home, so I can't adjust them anyway. I'll have to go down to my dad's workshop and borrow some shims. But in good news, what I have discovered is this engine has a cam in it. So, well, aftermarket cam I should say. So you can see there it's stamped with hot cams. It's got some part numbers on it there. I just quickly googled it and nothing's come up for those specific part numbers or to know whether it's a bottom end cam or a mid-range cam or a top end cam. So I'll do some more research on that. But that was pretty cool. It's got a cam. It could be good. I also noticed the other night, can I get the camera in there? No, you can't see. But on the back of the cylinder head, someone's engraved some initials and a number, like a 3-digit number, which I'm guessing is a race number. So there's also a possibility that this head has been ported, but I haven't had a look to see if it is yet. So now that I see it's got a cam in it, I realise there's probably a good chance it is a ported cylinder head. So I might investigate that further. But for now, I'm just going to put it back together. The intakes are really tight. I don't know if it's going to make it harder to start when it's cold. It normally only affects it when it's hot, but we'll try and start it anyway. And then I'll get down to my dad's workshop during the week and get some shims so I can set the clearances properly. But yeah, anyway, I thought I'd just share that because that's cool that it's got an aftermarket cam in it. Hopefully it's one that's going to work well on a road circuit. So anyway, we'll carry on putting it back together so we can try and start it. So we're a bit of a mess here because I don't have proper mounts or anything yet, although the CDI did actually fit on the same mounting points as the 125 one. So good old Honda using universal mount, so that's cool. That can just stay there, but I've got to make a coil mount because it doesn't reach the plug when I use the original one, and then I need to make a bracket for all these plugs here. But anyway, have a look at this. Alright, can you see? We've got spark. Good spark. So that is excellent. That was a real gamble with this engine, and if I didn't have spark, could have been a real nightmare trying to find the problem. So now that I know I've got that, I'm going to put the spark plug back in it. Quickly check the jets aren't blocked in the carby, and then we'll get that fitted, and then just try and start it. I'm excited. Oh, I probably should hook up a kill switch too, eh? Imagine if it just started and just went like wide open throttle and I couldn't kill it. Yeah. Alright, I think I've got an old kill switch, I'll plug that in too. Anyway, get the carby fitted and then make sure we've got fuel, and then let's try kick it over. Okay, so I thought it's probably better to try and start it outside. It's going to be fucking loud because there's no header pipe gasket at the cylinder, and then obviously no muffler. So if it does start, it's going to be like, yeah, super loud. It's got water in it. Obviously I'm not going to put coolant in it because it's going to come straight back out. And I've got cable ties as hose clamps, so it's pretty ghetto. But we've just got to try and start it. That's it. As long as it fires, I'll be happy with that. I've got no throttle cables, so if you want to give it a rev, it'll be directly off the carby. I don't have a spare kill switch, so I've just hooked up a wire, and then there's another fail-safe. Because I've only temporarily got the coil mounted to the frame with a cable tie, I'm just going to cut that cable tie and it should kill it, hopefully. It's in neutral anyway, so if it goes wide open throttle, worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to blow up, but it's hopefully not going to launch into my cars and other shit around here. So anyway, it's yeah, a moment of truth. I'll set the camera up on a tripod and then get some footage of me trying to start it. See if it actually goes. It's gotta go. Alright, we're going to give it one last shot for tonight. I just took the throttle up to it because I didn't have a throttle on before. I was hoping I'd just be able to start it and it would idle, but I think that's a bit wishful thinking. So we'll see if it starts now with the throttle, and if not, I'll call it for tonight and have a bit of a play around with it tomorrow and see if we can get it to go then. Alright, so I'm going to leave it there for tonight. Clearly it wants to start, it's got spark, it's clearly getting fuel because it's backfiring out of the pipe. So I reckon that it's more than likely those inlet valves. Remember I said that they were closed up, like I couldn't even get a feeler gauge in there. So I'm going to try and gap those or re-shim those. I've got to go get some shims. And I'll get that done over the next few days, and then I'll try and start it again. It feels like it would probably roll start, but I don't have obviously a seat or foot pegs, and it just be a bit sketchy. I mean, I might try it if I don't have any luck after I've done the valves, but I'm going to try and do that. So I'll do the inlet valve clearances first, get that sorted, and then we'll try and start it again. I think it'll start because it's yeah, it's clearly getting fuel and it's clearly got spark. So we'll check in again in a couple of days and see if we can get it to fire up. Alright, Sunday morning, we've just come down to my dad's workshop, dyno time. He does motorcycle dyno tuning and suspension revalving. He's very good. If you're in Perth, recommend you come and see him if you want to get your bike done. But today, I just brought my little bike in because he has some shims here for this engine. So I'm just going to rip the rocker cover off now and re-shim these intake valves. They're super tight, so like I know that means the valves are going to be fucked, but if I can just get them shimmed correctly enough to try and start it, when I rebuild the engine, when we do the full rebuild on this bike, then I'll replace the valves then. So anyway, I'm going to start taking this apart now, and once I get to the stage of putting the shims in, I'll start filming again to show you how far out they were. Right, so I got the cam out and all the rocker gear. So these inlet shims were 170s or 1.7 mils, so I had zero clearance with those. So I've just put some 158s in. just as a starting point. I'm going to sit the cam back on top of these and just lightly torque it down and see if we're in the ballpark with these. I think we're going to be sort of within the range that will work anyway with 158s. Alright, so I've got the cams bolted back down, so the 158s were still too thick, so I've had to go down to 145s, which is like quite a lot smaller than the 170s that were in it, but we've got clearance with them now, so I think that that's going to be good. One's still slightly snug, but it's got enough clearance so the feeler gauge goes in there. So now that we've got that sorted, I'll get it put back together. There's definitely, like, I can see now why it didn't start. They were super tight. There was no way that was going to start as it was before. So I'll get the cam gear put back on, rocker cover back on, and we'll have another shot at seeing if it's going to start. Alright, moment of truth, we'll see if it's going to start. I don't have any earmuffs with me here, which is a bit annoying because I think it's going to be super loud, but let's just see if it goes. Okay, so we're back home. I'm pretty stoked that started. I can move forward with a bit more confidence now that it's going to run. So next on the list, what I've got to do, I've got to start making all the brackets to hold all the electrics. I need to replace the cross member that I cut out here for the radiator hoses. While I'm at it, I think I'm going to add some more gussets to the frame. And then I'm going to start looking at what I'm going to do for a fuel cell and an airbox. So my plan is to run like a fiberglass tank cover and then have an aluminium fuel cell mounted underneath it there, and then an airbox at the back which breathes up through the tank cover. So to do that, I'm probably going to need to get some fairings ordered pretty soon. I've got some ideas of what I want to do for that side of things. So what I'm looking at is fairings from a completely different style of bike. They're not CBR125 fairings. They're race fairings off another small bike. I won't show you what they are yet. I'll wait until I've confirmed what ones I'm going to order. But I think I need to get those sorted, and I need to get some rear sets sorted as well. So then we can start to get to the stage where I'm going to be able to take it for a test ride. So next video, what we're going to probably cover is all the brackets for the electrics, that cross member like I was saying, and a couple of other bits and pieces on the frame. And then I want to make a start on the fuel cell. So fuel cell and airbox will be the next big fabrication things that I'll be tackling. So yeah, at least we got it running. So I know that it's going to work now. It's sort of it's always a big milestone when you get something started for the first time. Even though I haven't ridden it yet, it's just good to hear it run. Obviously this engine is going to be completely rebuilt once I do the final build on the bike, but at least I know now that if it runs, I'm going to be able to test ride it as it is now. it's clearly going to need some new inlet valves, and I'm going to put a slipper clutch in it, probably a high comp piston, do a bit of engine work as well with the rebuild. But anyway, that's a lot further down the track. So thanks for watching this episode. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Any questions or ideas or suggestions, whatever, just leave it in the comments. I'll try and respond to everyone, whether it's good, bad, whatever. I don't care. I'll try and respond, because I appreciate it when people take the time to comment something. So yeah, I'll leave this one here, and hopefully we'll be back in the not too distant future with another episode. Thanks.